also now are joined by CBC's Alex Panetta, who's joining us from Washington to get his perspective on this. So, Alex, really good to see you. What's your take of this, if I may, highly respectful Truth Social posting coming from U.S. President Donald Trump?
In a normal world, this would be an entirely unremarkable statement from a U.S. president, right? But we're not in a normal world. A couple of caveats before we pop the champagne corks in celebrating a return to normalcy here. It's worth remembering that President Trump is a famously transactional figure. His relationships live one day at a time with people, and they evolve on a case-by-case basis. He also said he had a productive conversation with Prime Minister Trudeau a couple times over the last few months, including at Mar-a-Lago, right before he twisted in the knife and spent weeks ridiculing him in an unprecedented manner in Canada-U.S. history. However, there are reasons to believe that this might actually signal a turning of the page because Trump himself has some incentives to turn that page. A fight with Canada is not popular in the United States. Tariffs on Canada are not popular. Making Canada the 51st state is not popular. And so, that's one thing. Second thing, Americans not only don't want to fight with Canada, they're starting to actually sour on the economy. Just some new consumer confidence numbers today, just absolutely brutal. Expectations or fears of inflation at a decades-long high, just today. So Trump himself has some incentives. I also think, in addition to those incentives for improving things with Canada, it's important to note that, Prime Minister Carney is not Justin Trudeau. Trump's disdain for Trudeau was made clear in a number of public statements and apparently in private as well. His former advisor, John Bolton, said that, Trump would speak disparagingly about Trudeau in private as well. So you put it all together and you see that, there's some reason to believe that this might be a bit of a pivot point moment. Now, with all the caveats I added earlier. But now we learned a little bit from the Canadian side as well. The statement out of Ottawa was actually more detailed than Trump's. It talks about negotiating a new security and economic arrangement after the election. And in that statement, Carney says he told Trump that counter tariffs were coming anyway as a result of these tariffs the United States is imposing. So it sounds like they had a pretty tough, serious, frank and substantive conversation based on what we're seeing out of the Canadian readout as well.
Let me ask you about Howard Lutnick, Alex, and the significance of this person when it comes to the trade policies of Donald Trump's second administration. Is he the guy? Because now what we're hearing from Mark Carney's office is that it's going to be Dominic LeBlanc representing us in the interim before the election is done, and Howard Lutnick. Are these the two key guys to make the decisions as far as trade is concerned between our two countries?
You are asking the question that people on Capitol Hill down the street over there have been asking for months. People here are wondering, wait, Howard Lutnick doesn't sound like he knows a lot about trade when he talks about it in public in his daily news interviews. But he's close to the president. He's the Secretary of Commerce. The United States government has hundreds of people, presumably within its ranks, who know more about trade than Howard Lutnick. So the question then is, to what extent is he driving the bus? To what extent is he the sales person trying to sell ideas to Trump that are generated elsewhere? That's not entirely clear. The United States Trade Representative's Office has, a leader. His name is Jamieson Greer, who is a trade expert, whose views on trade are a little Trumpy, but a lot more sophisticated than what you're getting out of the White House and from Lutnick. So the question is, to what extent Jamieson Greer and his team there at USTR will be refining the policies, and to what extent it's going to be Lutnick. I suspect it'll be a combination of both. You'll have Lutnick dealing more directly with the president, but then generating ideas and bouncing them off to see whether they're technically feasible off of USTR. And Canada's point person Lutnick will probably be working both ends of Pennsylvania Avenue, Congress, and then the White House.